In this video, we're going to have a look at flipping sideways circuits. Thanks to Rob for suggesting this one. So a flipping sideways circuit is basically either a forward flip or continuous backward flipping, and you move sideways around a circuit. So the nose is either always rotating into the circle or towards the center of the circle or out. So Rob was saying that he can do them, he can get round, but he feels that they're not very consistent in terms of the speed that they go around, so he's finding that difficult to manage. And the other thing he's struggling with is the height. So he tends to be nice and controlled when it's in front of him, but as soon as it goes around the back, it tends to gain height and then just look really, really horrible. And this is a really tricky maneuver. Although it's maybe not as flashy as something like a rolling circuit, it's really, really tricky because of the changes in orientation as you go round. And to do it really, really well, your skills as the orientation changes have to be really, really good. So the very first exercise we're going to do is a paused flipping 8-point rotation. And what you want to do is pick a spot in the simulator. So I picked a gap between the two trees here, and I'm going to try and keep it there. And we're going to do forward flips, and we're going to pause them, and then we're going to do backward flips. Because we're here doing this already, we might as well learn backwards at the same time. So do 2 forward flips, and then do 2 back flips, and then move to the next point in the 8-point rotation. And what you're looking for here is you're going to try and stabilize the model in each position as quickly as possible. You don't want it to drift off. If the model does drift off, you need to bring it back. If it's inverted or upright, just bring it back to the spot that you've chosen and continue with it. And you'll find that maybe the flips towards yourself are weaker and you tend to drift off or gain height. And this just means you've identified a weakness where your reactions are slightly slower in awkward orientations. And this is all part of progressing. So we're just going to go all the way around the rotation, doing forwards and backwards. And this is one of these maneuvers where in real life it's quite a nice maneuver to do. Because you're doing something fairly safe, and you're just doing flips, which we know how to do, the model's not moving at speed, it's literally on the spot and you're just doing flips. It's really nice to actually do it for real. In fact, I think you'll learn far quicker if you can do these ones for real. But obviously the sim is convenient. For the next exercise, we're going to take what we did with the paused rotation and we're now going to do a slow continuous flipping. So first we'll do a forward flipping all the way around to the beginning, and then we'll reverse that and go into backwards flipping. And if you've worked really hard at just doing the paused ones, you should find this relatively easy. However, if you've skipped over some of the bits in the paused version, you might find this a bit trickier because it kind of builds on that. So we'll take it really slow. We'll still aim to hit 8 points. So every time we go through the upright, we want to be at one of those 8 points. And if you find it's moving around more in one orientation than it does in maybe your favorite orientation, which is probably tail in, then that's a weakness and you need to work on that. So you need to go back to the paused versions, maybe try a couple of those, maybe just work a little bit longer on getting those orientations a little stronger. Then we can do this exercise for real as well. It's also still a nice, very slow exercise, very low risk. So to take it out into the real world is really great. One of the nice things about this kind of exercise, although it may seem really boring and take a long time, it's a nice exercise to do when you're kind of having a mental break. So you've done your first 5-10 flights of the day, you're sort of at the limit of what you can do, or you've maybe reached your limit of learning, and you just want to take it slow. And then this is the sort of thing you do where you go and do F3C style hovering, or you do these sorts of orientation basics. It's a really, really good time to work on them. And the last stationary maneuver is basically just the continuous flipping that we've done previously, and we're just going to speed it up to almost maximum flip rate. Okay, so just a quick word on the rotation rates. So if you do a very slow rotation rate with a lot of flips, you'll find it much easier. The flips will be flatter, and you can see for each flip I'm only doing a couple of degrees rotation, and it's much easier to control. If we now increase the rotation rate, so maybe we're only getting 4 flips or 2 flips per rotation, you'll see the rudder tries to skew the model out the whole time, and you have to control it much more tightly using the cyclic. So you can push the flip rate up really, really high, but as long as you don't do a lot of rotation, you can keep it nice and flat and controlled. In this exercise, we're going to do a slow flipping sideways circuit. So we're going to still aim to have 8 forward flips as we go around. We're going to take it really slow, and you find if you're not meeting the point that you're aiming for, you can just slow it down a little bit more. You can even make it paused if you have to, but ideally you want to do exactly 8. And then as we exit the circuit, we're going to do a couple. So you'll see I tend to enter moving already, and that just makes it a little bit easier, because otherwise if you start from a fixed position, it's a lot harder to get that initial movement. You have to lean the model over quite a bit. So we tend to start it with a straight line with a movement, and then as we exit, just keep that straight line going. And exactly the same thing in the real world. So we're going to do 2 flips here in a straight line, and as we hit center, then we'll start that circuit really slow, and we're looking for exactly 8 flips per circuit, and then we'll do the same thing with the backwards flips. And this is it, the very last bit, flipping sideways circuits. So we're going to start moving sideways already. Then we're going to go into an almost full speed forward flip. We're not going to count how many we're doing as we're going round, and then we're going to exit in a straight line and stop flipping. And do the same with the backwards. We're going to start moving in a straight line just to get the momentum. We'll go around, we'll do lots of flipping, keeping it really flat. Tail thrust should push us round. And then we'll exit in a straight line. And we'll do the exact same thing from real life. So we haven't really mentioned tail thrust at all, but the tail thrust is actually pushing us around this circuit. So the model should stay fairly flat. Towards the end of the video, I'll do another little section where we talk about just flying against the tail thrust. Now, you pretty much just have to lean the model over quite a bit more to get it to go against. And if you have to fight against the wind as well, it actually becomes a real issue. So let's just finish with backwards flipping, sideways circuits. And then we can move on to some more advanced versions. And the very last maneuver is a sideways flipping figure of 8. Now, I'm a big fan of the figure of 8s because what happens is in a circle you can kind of figure out the stick movements and then sort of carry that on, and it'll carry you around the circle, so it'll kind of just fake getting through your weak points. Whereas the figure of 8, it's got a nice change of direction in the middle, it kind of forces you to fly the model. And then you'll exit the figure of 8 with a straight line. And then the other nice thing about a figure of 8 is that you don't have to go right back to the beginning again, let's say to the right hand side, to restart. You can just turn around from where you are, start the figure 8 from that side, and you'll be doing both a circuit where you're flipping out, and then once you do the crossover in the middle, you'll be doing a circle where you're flipping in. So figure of 8, really useful maneuver. So moving the model against the tail thrust can be really tricky. Now the sim might not simulate it enough. So you'll find on the sim the model will go around. Maybe on Heli-X you can see it's leaning over a little bit more than it was the other way. But in the real world it'll be far, far more tricky. In fact, if you're going against the tail thrust and then as you come round you're going into the wind, I mean I've seen sometimes you have to lean the model up to 45 degrees just to get it to penetrate through. But you've got all the tools to learn, so figure it out and take it slow. So in conclusion, this is a really, really nice maneuver. I think the most value you'll actually get out of this is more about the orientations. So the simple things we did in the beginning where it was just stationary, and then we did a flipping rotation. There's so much you can learn in there and so much you can take forward into other maneuvers. I really hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any suggestions for the format that I'm doing it in or things you'd like to see, please let me know. Until next time.